Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin with chapter 47, verse 29. Chapter 47, verse 29. Yaakov and his entire family is living in Egypt. And now we say, Vayikruvu Yemei Yisrael Lamus. The days of Yisrael were coming close to death. Vayikra Livno Yosef. And he called to his son Yosef, Vayomer Lo, and he said to him, Imna Matzasi if I found favor in your eyes, place your hand under my thigh. Do with me kindness and truth. Please do not bury me in Egypt. And this is where Yaakov asks Yosef that Yosef make sure to arrange for Yaakov's burial in the land of Israel. Now, just to jump ahead for a second, just to get a context, and they have a conversation. Now, if you go to chapter 48, verse 1, and it was after these words, and it was told to Yosef, your father is sick. So Yosef brings Menashe and Ephraim with him. Okay, so in 29, we said that it was Yaakov was nearing death. What does it mean that he was nearing death? Does it mean he was ill? That's what I think most of us would have guessed. But like 3 psukim later says, well, yeah, Yosef was told that his father was ill. Wasn't he already ill? And if that's not what it meant when it said he was nearing death, so what does it mean? So just an interesting sort of technical question. Ramban on Pasuk Chavtes, Vayikuvu Yimei Yisrael Lamos Pisrono. The meaning is, Kasher Karvu Yimei Yisrael Lamos Kara Livno Yosef. When Yaakov was coming closer to death, he called to his son Yosef. This was in the last year of his life. What this means is, he saw that he was getting weaker. He just sensed he was getting weaker. It's not that he was ill. He had a sense that he wouldn't have long days after this. That's why he called the son Yosef. We actually have this sometimes. Sometimes a person begins to feel, that they should get their affairs in order and things like that. It's not necessarily that they're ill. It's just they sort of sense, they're declining in various abilities. That seems to be how the Ramban explains it. And then it happens to be that Yosef came back to Egypt, went back to his job. And then after that, Yaakov actually became ill. Yosef, and Yosef was told, now it's not like just abstract thing anymore. Your father's having an abstract conversation with you. Now it's more than abstract. He's sick. So that's when Yosef Yosef brings Menashe and Ephraim. By the way, he cites the pasuk by David HaMelech. Vayikruvu Yemei David Lamus, that it was near David's time of death. V'sham ne'amar anochi olech b'derech kol haaretz. It says over there that he says to Shlomo, I am going in the way of all of the land. Ki yada b'nafsho. He just knew it was coming. So it seems to be a similar idea. Just an interesting shot to think about. Okay. Let's move on now to verse 31. So, actually, verse 30, Yaakov continues to speak to Yosef. This is when he first calls him Yosef. I'm going to lay with my fathers. Please take me out of Egypt. And bury me in the burial place of my fathers. Vayomar, and Yosef responds, Anochi eseh chidvarecha. I will do as you say. Verse 31, Vayomer hishavali. So Yaakov says to Yosef, swear to me. Vayishavalo, and he swore, Vayishtach Yisrael Rosh Hamitan, and Yaakov bent forward. What a strange exchange, right? Yaakov asks Yosef, I want you to do something for me. Yosef says, I'll do it. Yaakov says, could you swear that you'll do it? Does he not trust his son? Why does he tell him to take an oath? Ramban and Pasuk Lamed Aleph, Hishavali vayishavalo. Lo hoya Yaakov choshed bivno atzadik ha'oav lo sheyamra mitzvahs aviv. Yaakov did not suspect that his beloved son would disobey the instructions of his father. Yaakov asked for it. Yosef said, I'll do it. It's not that Yaakov doesn't trust him. He did this to strengthen the matter in the eyes of Paro. Ulai lo yitain lo rishus li pared. Really interesting. Yaakov is worried that when push comes to shove and he dies, Paro is going to tell Yosef, I can't let you go. I can't let you take care of this. You're way too busy. You could come in, Miriam. V'yomar lo shlach es achecha. So once I'm done with the shir, we'll go. Okay? Do you want to sit with me while I'm giving the shir, or do you want to wait? I'm giving the shir now. Okay? That's amazing. Okay, but I have to give the shir now. Okay? Thank you, Miriam. Okay. V'yomar lo shlach es achecha v'yasavodecha. You want to sit in my lap? V'yomer lo, and he'll say, Shlach es achecha v'yasavodecha v'yalu sham. So Yaakov is worried that when the time comes, Paro will say to Yosef, you can't go and bury your father. Send your people, send your workers, or send your brothers, send somebody. But you've got an important job here in Egypt. Oh, sheyach boats Paro, sheyikavar anavi ba'artzo. Or maybe Paro will have another idea. It's not that he can't part with Yosef, it's that he can't part with Yaakov. Yaakov is this famous figure. Maybe Paro will say, look, you're an important person in Egypt. I want your father buried in Egypt. So either Paro will object to Yaakov's burial in Israel in the first place, or Paro will object to Yosef going to take care of the burial. Therefore, Yaakov had Yosef take an oath. Now Yosef has protection, because Yosef could say to Paro, my gosh, I swore to my father, please let me keep my oath to my father. V'gam Yosef yitztorach Yosef l'shtadlu b'inyan b'nei hashvua. And that Paro will appreciate that Yosef will be responsible to follow through. You see the prescient nature of Yaakov's plan, because indeed, when Paro gives Yosef the green light to go bury his father, he says, go and bury your father as he had you swear. So you see, the oath made a big difference. So that's just an interesting shot from the Ramban. Okay, let's jump ahead now. Chapter 48. Let's go chapter 48, verse 5. Chapter 48, verse 5. So now it's the time where we say that Yaakov was ill, and Yosef brings his sons Menashe and Ephraim. And Yaakov says to Yosef in verse 5, your two children who were born to you in Egypt, before I joined you in Egypt, I consider them my children. Ephraim and Menashe, Kiruvain v'Shimon yiyuli. Ephraim and Menashe should be to me like Reuven and Shimon. They should be like their own tribes. Any children born subsequent, they're not my kids, they're your kids. In other words, they're not going to have tribal status anymore. Children, they will fall under one of the tribes, either Menashe or Ephraim. Verse 7. Vani bivawimi padan. When I was coming from Padan, Mesa lai Rachel be'eretz Canaan baderech. Rachel died upon me in the land of Canaan on the path. Ba'od kivras eretz lavo Ephrasa. On my way to Ephras. V'ekberei al sham b'derech Ephras. I buried her on the path of Ephras. He Beis Lachem. That is Beis Lachem. This pasuk seems totally out of joint with everything else we're talking about. Right? We're talking about the special status of Yosef's children. And now, out of nowhere, Yaakov says, by the way, your mother died on the path and they buried her in such a place. What's that to do with anything? And then, by the way, the next pasuk, he starts talking about the sons. He starts talking about Menashe and Ephraim. So what function is this pasuk taking here? Let's go to, let's go to the second Ramban on Pasuk Zayin. In mine, in mind, there's like one Ramban that's about 4 lines, and then there's another Ramban with the words Vayek Beresham. They both have the same beginning words. Says the Ramban, V'yodati sheyesh bilvavcha alai. I know you are upset with me that I buried your mother, Rachel, in that place and not where? Not in Maras HaMachpelah. Not in the place of burial distinction, which, by the way, her sister Leah was buried in, and the other patriarchs and matriarchs are buried there. Aval da'alecha, but you should know, Sha'al pi hadibur kvarti Hashem. I buried her there based on God's instructions. Shetela Ezra livoneh, that her being buried there will be an assistance to her children. Kishayaglein nivuzradan, vayu ovrim derech sham. When nivuzradan will exile them from the land of Israel, they'll pass by that place. Yatzasa al kivra uviksha rachamim aleim, and that they'll pass by her burial spot, and the soul of Rachel will ask for mercy for her descendants. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, a very famous pasuk, Kol berama nishma Rachel mevaka al baneha, and that there's a voice heard on high that Rachel cries for her children. V'akadosh Baruch Hu Meshiva, and God responds to the cries of Rachel, because it says later on in the pasuk, Yesachar lefulasech v'shavu vanim ligvulam, that there's a reward for your hard work, and the children will return to their area. That is all from Rashi. All of that is Rashi's explanation as to the context here. V'tzarach al kapanim, she'aremes b'mikra l'tam hazeh she'amru ba'agad hazeh. V'shem hazeh ma she'amra akasov meisa alai Rachel baderech v'ekberei Hashem b'derech. Klomar, baderech asher yavru babaneha meisa v'sham kvar tia l'tovasam ki hilo meisa baderech rak barama she eretz binyamin v'sham nikbara aval baderech shel asid meisa. Okay, so the Ramban says this is all an amazing pshat, but shouldn't it be alluded to somewhere in our pasuk? I mean, where do we see this in our pasuk? It's very nice. It's quoting Yirmiyah and very beautiful things about Rachel crying for her children. What's that to do with anything? And is that coming out of the pasuk at all? So the Ramban actually surmises that what Yaakov means when he says, I buried her on the path, he says they weren't in transit at the time. You know what it means? I buried her on the path. I buried her on what would be the path of her descendants later on. So he says that's how it's being alluded to in the pasuk, that it was important that I bury her there because that was the path. Okay, let me just see what time it is here. Okay, I think we're not done with this Ramban. We'll go further with this Ramban tomorrow, God willing, but I think this is a good place to stop. We discussed today what it meant that Yaakov was nearing death. We discussed why Yaakov had Yosef swear. We began to discuss what Yaakov's point even is at this juncture, talking about, where he buried Rachel. Okay, I want to wish everyone a good day, and take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.